When I walk into someone's house, when I walk into your house, I am unfortunately analyzing, the decor, what's going on around me. Am I going to say anything? No. Unless you're, asking for my opinion, I'm not going to say anything. And sometimes when people ask my opinions, I won't fully give them the real truth unless they really want it. I try to, be sensitive, and also everyone has their own taste, so I don't want to be like, don't have that, when I can clearly tell that that's something that makes sense for them. But anyways, I am analyzing, and I am noticing certain things that I would do different, or I would tell them if they were to ask me. So, yeah, here are some interior design mistakes that you might not all notice, but I do. So here is my list of interior design mistakes. I guess, is it mistakes? Yeah, it's a mistake that you might not notice, but I most definitely notice pretty much right when I walk into the room. These come into my head. I might have a problem in that way, but I also work in interiors. It's just kind of what it is. The first thing I notice, and I don't think this should come as a surprise if you watch my channel, is bad lighting. I'm constantly talking about lighting, so I wanted to bring that up first because that is truly the first thing I do notice. And also one thing that I might point out. Some of these other points I make, I wouldn't necessarily point out because it might involve investing, money or making big changes. But sometimes when someone has really bad lighting, I will say, tell me if this is rude, I will say you need to put a warmer bulb in that. And then they're like, really? And I'm like, it will make a huge difference. And they're like, well, what do I get? And then I have my specific bulbs that I send to them. And I'm like, get these. Okay. Bad lighting can really make or break a space. Even if you have a empty apartment, you just moved in, if you have, a lamp on a stack of books with good lighting, it's going to make all of the difference. Also, good lighting when you're eating over at a friend's house is important. I think when you're sitting at, the dining table, and I've been in these instances, I guess less so with, my friends, but more so with like, I don't know, going to like a partner's parents' house. They're a little more old school. They might have the lights blared up. Blared up. No, that's not a word, but you get what I'm saying. The second thing I will notice is the way your furniture is arranged. And again, I can just picture myself in these instances, and I always want to be like, let's rearrange your furniture really quick. This would be so fun. You don't want to overstep. I don't want to overstep. It just depends on comfortability. But yeah, I'll notice the way the furniture is arranged, where maybe the sofa is against the wall, and I'll be like, if you just pull it off of the wall, it could be good. Or if you just move these two chairs over here, and then it's across from the sofa, and the sofa, move it here, and then it opens up the walkway. These are all things I'm thinking in my head. I think a lot of people make mistakes when arranging their furniture, thinking everything needs to be, centered around the TV. Or I feel like a lot of people make mistakes in the way that it's arranged, of opening up a space or creating a walkway. It's makes sense. Not everyone works in interiors or knows this stuff. If someone were to come in to my house and I was cooking something, I would be like, please tell me that I, shouldn't put this in first or whatever. I don't know anything about that. So tell me. But I guess with interiors, it can get taken so personally. It's the same thing with clothing. Like, you can't really comment on that stuff. Sometimes if I'm, staying at my friend's place, like there was a time where I stayed at my friend Marie's place in New York, and I was there for like a month because I was single, and I was just like, I'm going to go to New York, and they were on their honeymoon. And so I was watching their cat. And while they were gone, I rearranged furniture. I actually organized some stuff in their cabinets. And I think some people like this, some people don't. But I did do it, and then I was like, you can rearrange it back if you want. It wasn't anything too crazy. My mom and I will also do this at Airbnbs. It's probably, I don't need to be doing it. Sometimes it's like, this is helpful, but sometimes it's intrusive. So I don't know. Another interior design mistake that you might not notice, but I most definitely do, is trends. When you walk into someone's home and it's very clear that they have been scrolling on TikTok or they have been following one specific interior designer. They have been shopping all Magnolia Home. I think it's very clear and apparent when someone does that. And I do feel as though that is an interior design mistake because you're not really finding your own style. You're not really allowing yourself to find your own style. You're not really mixing different eras of design, which is super important. And, just figuring out what you like, what your partner likes, whatever. I do find that to be, not the best type of interior design when you're just following a trend. And I will notice it immediately. And I'll probably know exactly, where you found this or what rabbit hole you went down or who you're mimicking. Yeah, that's it. I'll notice that. Okay. And on top of all of the furniture or decor being one trend, this is another thing I'll notice so quickly. And this is one of my main pet peeves, I think, in interiors. And I don't know why it bothers me so much. I don't know. But basically when the style of the home, the interiors, all goes towards just one person. If you live with a partner or you live with roommates or whatever it is, and I think you mainly see this with partners or within relationships, couples who move in together, where one person really is in charge of decorating the place, which makes sense, maybe someone finds interest in it more than the other, but I really don't love when it's, all just one way. For example, if someone's really obsessed with the color pink and pink kind of just explodes around the house, I'm like, okay, someone clearly has an obsession here. I just don't love when the other partner or the other people who live in the same space are not taken into account. Even if the other person isn't as involved in helping, but they still have, some opinions on it. I do think it's just important to be like, hey, of these two things, what do you like? Or like, do you like this? Or, kind of including them when they might have an opinion or, would like to be included in some way. I don't know. I think it's important to make the house feel personal to everyone who lives there, basically. So I will notice if someone has really taken over the design. And I guess it's super like situational of how I would feel about it. But there have been times where I'm like, yeah, someone was in charge. Hey, hi. Quick ad break to talk about today's sponsor, Bombas. You all know I love Bombas. We've been working with Bombas for some time now. I have their socks. I have a t-shirt. I have their thongs. And now I have their new bralette, which I'm super excited about. Having like good basics is key to my everyday comfort. Bombas launched in 2013. And after the founder learned that socks are the #1 most requested items in homeless shelters, they decided to donate 1 pair of socks for every pair of socks purchased, which is part of the reason why I love Bombas. So now let's take a look at their new seamless bralette. This I already can tell I'm going to like because it is the same material as the thongs. So it's no show and it also has, no seams. Whoa, I already know I'm going to like this. This is a good, everyday bra. And then I also purchased another t-shirt because I got this one in white last time and I wear it a lot. And so I was like, now I want this in black. And I really love the length of the sleeves on the t-shirt. They hit a really nice spot. Bombas is good. It's good quality. It fits well. It lasts. And I'm a huge fan. Head to bombas.com/page or click the link in the description or scan the QR code right next to my head and use code PAGE20 for 20% at checkout. And thank you again, Bombas, for sponsoring this video. We love ya. I love ya. And now back to whatever I was blabbing about. Another interior design mistake that you might not notice, but I will. Honestly, all of you watching probably would notice some of these things because if you're watching my channel, I feel like you're into interiors. I don't know. I guess you're going to be on the lookout for all of this. Are you going to be judging people's homes now when you go in them like me internally? It's actually not that good. But another thing I will notice is the way things are hung on the walls. One being the TV being hung too high or too low or in like a weird spot. Another thing I'll notice is if you don't use wall anchors when you're installing some shelves or whatever, like if things are on like a little bit of a tilt, I'm like, this isn't installed properly. This isn't safe. Also, art being hung too high or in weird spots or like a single piece on a giant wall. Just the way you're hanging anything on your walls, I'm not looking at it per se, like trying to like check it off my list. It's only if it's bad I'm going to notice it. Honestly, all of this, it's only if it's bad, if it's a mistake. I guess that's what the title is. But if you're doing it good, I might notice it maybe. If it's really good, I'll probably compliment it. But if it's, a big mistake, a big interior design mistake, I will go, yikes. And one of Kate and I's favorite hobbies is when we go to restaurants and then we'll sit down and kind of like pick out what we like, what we don't like about the spot. Sometimes we'll talk to the waiter about like who designed this place or like who did the woodworking, and they'll tell us some info. But it's fun my mom and I do that too. We'll be like, this glassware is cool. It's kind of fun to just like dissect it, but you don't want to do that when it's like your friends. Unless you can dish it and they can take it. Sometimes I feel like I can dish it, but I can't take it, so. Window treatments can be very tricky. I think one of the main things I notice when, I don't know, if I see you have some weird window treatment like this, in my head, I'm like, you could do the same thing and have it be visually appealing for the same price. IKEA has great curtains, track curtains. You could get, IKEA ones for the same price. So I think for me, if I'm ever going to, comment on, something, I'm trying to keep it in their same price range. Just being like, look, this is fine, but you could also do this, upgrade it for the same price. So with window treatments, I think a lot of people will move in to an apartment or a place and kind of keep what was there, like these outdated blinds or whatever it is. And a lot of times you can, take them down, put them under your bed, and install some new things, especially these like really outdated, what are these called? Whatever these blinds are. They actually are on hooks, so you could take the pieces down and put up track curtains yourself. There's just a lot of ways to do it, and I will notice that. Do I have a disease? Another interior design mistake that I've talked about multiple times are rugs that are too small. But another thing I'll notice about your rugs when I'm like really being very judgy, I guess. Another thing I'll notice about rugs when I walk into a space is one, if you have like a kilim, which is a really thin rug, which I've talked about, I don't love a kilim, you should at least have a pad under it or something so it makes it not like slidey, because you really can kind of trip on kilims if you're not careful. Another thing is people not having rugs where they should have rugs. I think the two key areas that you need a rug are one, the living room, and two, the bedroom. Other than that, you don't really necessarily need a rug. I think those are the two areas that you want to like anchor these big pieces of furniture. I'm not like, oh, you need a hallway rug, you need an entry rug, you need a rug by your kitchen sink. That's like, it's like whatever. But some people will have a rug under their dining table, but then they won't have one in their bedroom. And I'm like, this, just put it over there. They're like, zip it, Paige. Shush. Honestly, I don't really ever say anything unless people ask me over to help them. But I'm thinking it. I am thinking it. Something that I'm very passionate about that kind of goes hand in hand with interior design is organization. I'm really into being organized. I'm really into finding storage solutions. It feels exciting to me. When I moved into my Chicago place, I was always trying to find different ways to have storage or make things more efficient. I don't know. I'm into that side of interiors. I like efficiency, comfort, and good design kind of all wrapped in one. So I'm going to end on these last 2 points of stuff I will notice when I walk into your house. One being you have too much furniture. I think specifically this age range, which is like mid 20s to 30s, like kind of when you're getting your first real place, you don't necessarily own it, you have an apartment. A lot of people will hold on to this stuff that they have, accumulated through their early 20s, maybe stuff that their parents gave them. And I think sometimes you might just have a little bit too much furniture. And so I think it's good to kind of go through that and sift through what's important to keep, what's not. And then a lot of people will also throw a lot of stuff into a storage unit. And I'm like, you're never going to see that. You're never going to see it. So why don't you just narrow down to what you actually need? Unless it's like a family heirloom that you need to like hold on to and you just don't have space or whatever. But I think a lot of people just have too much furniture, It's like narrow. You can get rid of that. You don't need to hold on to things. I'm very sentimental towards a lot of objects that I have. Once I sold the sofa, I did have like a moment like sad about it. And I don't know, I do like become attached to some of my more personal items, but I'm also like, get it out, and I'm practical. So yeah, too much furniture is something I definitely will notice. When you don't have a lot of furniture, I don't notice that as much because one, it takes a long time to furnish a place. So I immediately am like, I'm glad they're taking it slow, or, maybe they're just simple in their design. So I will notice if you have a lot of furniture, but I don't really care. It's not really clicking in my brain. Nothing's going off in my brain if you live a little more sparse, simplistic. And for my last point, touching on me being into organization and storage and functionality, I did work for a professional organizer when I first moved out to LA. So I do really like it. I honestly, in another life, I would be a professional organizer. I wouldn't say, no, my house is pretty like ADD organized. Like when people look at my fridge, they're like, all right, relax. But I live by myself. So it's like, this is my time. This is my time to do it. But anyways, storage and functionality are huge, big, little, medium, big red flags that go off in my head. If I walk into your bedroom and it's pretty small, I'm like, why is your, bed not up a little bit more? Why didn't you get a higher bed frame so you could have baskets under your bed for storage, Why aren't you doing a wall shelf unit, behind your bed? You could have storage all the way to the top of the ceiling. So annoying. There's just certain things that I will definitely notice storage-wise, especially when I know this could make their life so much simpler. This definitely is an area that I feel like I could say something if I like really feel like it, because it's not really insulting or like picking apart their design. I'm just being like, whoa, imagine if you did this, you could have a linen closet. Just imagine. So there we are. Now you know all of the interior design mistakes that you might not notice, but I do. And it does make me sound a little ill now that I'm kind of like reading these all out loud. I'm like, one, I do think about these when I enter someone's home. So I guess interiors are just constantly being talked about. I mean, it is my interest, so. But I do look at all of this stuff, I guess. But I'm not judging you. I'm never judging you. I'm never thinking less of you. I'm just like, wow, I'm good at my career. I'm good at what I do. And it really is a skill. At the end of the day, this is such a specific skill to have. Like sometimes I'm like, it's weird that I am naturally just like talented at this. I mean, I've had to learn a lot and I've learned a ton through trial and error. But at the end of the day, I think I just have a knack for it, When you're good at just something, I do think that that's what it is. So if someone wants my help, I will gladly exchange. I will give you an interior design walkthrough of your house in exchange for something. Should we do a video on that? That's actually kind of a good idea. Like, are there any chefs watching, or, you know, anyone want to like style me? Let's do an exchange. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. I am a little chilly in my tank top. I'm gonna go inside. I'm going to, what am I gonna make? Maybe some soup. I kind of pre-prepped stuff for this week. A lot of veggies I washed and cut, and fruit and stuff. I don't know where this motivation came from. Probably because it's almost summer. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna cut my vegetables so I eat them. And that's that. Let me know your thoughts on this video down below. Am I sick in the head? Okay, bye.